Imagine this scenario for a second. A disruption hits the port of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And we aren't talking about, like, a massive Hollywood-style explosion or a nuclear threat, right?
Yeah.
We are talking about a highly calculated, targeted disruption hitting the automated cranes, the cyber logistics systems, and the physical sea lanes.
Right.
According to a recent NATO war game, within exactly 5 days, that single logistical hiccup ripples out into severe food shortages and like a complete breakdown of law and order across the entire surrounding region. 5 days.
Yeah, 5 days.
That is all it takes to go from a localized shipping glitch to complete societal collapse.
And, I mean, the reason it only takes 5 days is because of the sheer density, right? The absolute hyper-interdependence of how we live now. There's just no buffer anymore.
Exactly. There's no buffer. And that is exactly what we're getting to with you today. We've got this massive stack of research on the table, and it is all pulling from one phenomenal, comprehensive book.
It really is incredible.
It's called Urban Operations: War, Crime, and Conflict, edited by Sullivan Jones and Vice Argomito. And our mission today, honestly, is to show you why this book is an absolute must-read.
Yeah, essential.
Like, if you are trying to understand tomorrow's headlines,
yeah.
whether that's a global supply chain crisis, a cartel siege, or a ground war in Eastern Europe, you literally need this book. It is not just some dry military textbook.
Not at all.
It's essentially a masterclass, a survival guide, really, for navigating the global security landscape of the 21st century.
What's fascinating here is there's this staggeringly blunt quote from the sources by General Mark Milley that really just sets the stakes perfectly.
Oh, yeah, the demographic shift quote.
Right. He points out that for 241 years, the United States Army was designed, manned, and trained to fight primarily in rural areas, out in the open.
Right, like traditional battlefields.
Exactly. But the demographics of the planet are shifting violently right now. Within 30 years, 66% of the world's population is projected to live in cities.
66%. That's wild.
It is. And we are seeing the rise of these megacities, urban centers, with populations well over 10 million people. And the terrifying consensus among the security experts contributing to this book is that, well, modern militaries and police forces are entirely unprepared for it.
Which honestly makes total sense, because fighting in a city isn't just, fighting on a grassy field that happens to have some buildings in the way.
No, not at all.
The book goes deep into these historical case studies to show how the physical environment of a city completely breaks standard military logic.
Oh, it dismantles standard doctrine entirely. The book actually describes urban combat using the word feral.
Feral? Wow.
Yeah, feral. It strips away all the neat, highly organized tactics. I mean, look at Chapter 3, which analyzes the 1945 Battle of Manila during World War II.
Right.
When you put a modern military into a dense city, the chaos is shockingly intimate. In Manila, the environment was so violently choked with falling debris and pulverized concrete dust.
Just thick smoke from burning buildings,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. The smoke was so thick that troops literally could not see 10 feet in front of them. So to prevent soldiers from shooting their own allies in the confusion, American commanders had to assign specific sides of a single street to different units.
Wait, literally just splitting the street down the middle?
Yes. If you were assigned the right sidewalk and you saw a vague silhouette moving through the smoke on the left sidewalk, you had to assume it was an enemy and open fire.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that sounds like absolute terrifying paranoia.
It was.
I mean, you can't use traditional unit formations or flanking maneuvers if you can't even see across a 2-lane road without risking friendly fire.
Right.
So how do militaries adapt to that level of blindness? Do they just learn to avoid the streets entirely?
Eventually, yes, they do. And that evolution brings the book to Chapter 6, which looks really closely at the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF.
Okay.
By 2002, during Operation Defensive Shield, the IDF realized that streets and alleys are essentially what they call fatal funnels.
Fatal funnels.
Yeah.
That paints a picture.
Right. They are pre-sighted kill zones, perfectly shaped to funnel troops directly into sniper fire and hidden improvised explosive devices. So they pioneered this highly controversial tactic called mouse holing, which is also known as interior space maneuver.
Which means moving through the buildings instead of around them, right?
Exactly.
But how does a squad actually pull that off physically? I mean, you can't just indiscriminately blow up the structural supports of a multi-story apartment block without bringing the entire building down on your own head.
Right, you definitely can't. It requires highly precise structural engineering, but, applied in the middle of a chaotic firefight.
Jeez.
They aren't just throwing grenades at walls. Squads use these specialized shaped breaching charges designed to blow a hole just large enough for a person to step through.
So they're just walking through walls.
Yeah. They move horizontally, breaching from one family's living room straight into the neighbor's kitchen. Or they blast vertically through floors and ceilings. They have to quickly map out the load-bearing pillars and specifically target the weaker, non-structural partition walls. The mechanism here is about creating a customized, invisible pathway. It allows a unit to navigate an entire city block without ever stepping foot on a public sidewalk.
But if I think about the mechanics of that, traditional open field warfare is like trying to win a violent, aggressive rugby match, right?
Sure.
But mouse-holing through a city,
Yeah.
that's like trying to play that exact same explosive rugby match inside a multi-story apartment complex where thousands of innocent families are actively trying to have dinner.
It's a nightmare scenario.
Right. So how does a military justify blowing a hole through a civilian's living room wall?
Right.
I mean, does the book actually tackle the massive human cost of this?
Oh, it absolutely does. It dedicates an immense amount of space to that exact tension. Chapter 16 focuses entirely on international humanitarian law, or IHL.
Okay.
And the authors make a really crucial point here. In an urban environment, protecting civilians isn't just about legality or moral obligations. It is a strict tactical necessity.
Because of the backlash.
Yeah, exactly. If you level the city and turn the surviving population into your enemy, you lose the strategic objective.
No.
Period.
Right.
So the book documents how militaries desperately try to engineer their way around this. For example, the IDF developed a tactic called roof knocking.
Oh, I've seen that mentioned in the news. How does that actually work in practice?
Well, they drop a highly specialized, non-explosive, or very low-yield munition directly onto the roof of a targeted building.
So it doesn't blow the building up.
No, it doesn't destroy the structure, but the kinetic impact literally shakes the entire building to its foundation. The mechanism basically acts as a massive, unmistakable physical alarm clock.
Wow.
Yeah, it warns the non-combatants inside that they have a very brief, specific window of time to evacuate before the actual lethal strike happens.
It is just wild to think about engineers having to design a warning bomb just to navigate the density of a city block.
Yeah, it really is.
But it highlights something the book really hammers home. The urban battlefield is deeply three-dimensional. Like, it isn't just about moving horizontally through living rooms. It's expanding downward into the dirt and outward into the ocean.
The subterranean aspect is a complete nightmare for a high-tech military.
Yeah.
Chapter 13 covers tunnel warfare. Now, tunneling has obviously been around for thousands of years, but it is now a mandatory, inescapable feature of modern conflict. The sources trace this from the Viet Cong's Cu Chi tunnels all the way to Hamas's subterranean networks in Gaza today.
I constantly hear about these tunnel networks on the news, but like, why are they so incredibly effective today? I mean, modern militaries have satellites that can read a license plate from space.
Because dirt is the ultimate equalizer.
Yeah.
You can have a multi-billion-dollar satellite, but it cannot see through 50 feet of solid concrete and compacted soil. GPS signals cannot penetrate the Earth.
Right.
Yeah, and high-frequency radio communications bounce off tunnel walls and degrade almost instantly. So when an advanced, digitized military goes underground, they instantly lose their drone overwatch, they lose their precision airstrikes, and their communication networks.
They just go dark.
Completely dark. The environment forces them to fight entirely on the defender's terms, in complete darkness, in booby-trapped spaces so tight that a soldier often can't even raise a rifle to their shoulder.
So you essentially strip away the billion-dollar technological advantage and force them into a brutal fistfight in the dark.
That's exactly what happens.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But the book also pulls us in the completely opposite direction.
Yeah.
Not underground, but out to the water.
Yes.
Chapter 12 gets into something called littoral operations, which refers to coastal cities, right?
Right. And the statistics here are critical to understanding global security. 80% of the global population now lives within 100 kilometers of a coastline.
80%.
80%. So NATO is increasingly running intense war games around what they call urban littorals. They describe defending these massive coastal cities as the 9-domain challenge.
Wait, 9 domains.
Ah.
I can think of land, sea, and air. What in the world are the other 6?
Okay, so you have land, sea, and air. Then you add space, cyberspace, the subsurface of the ocean, the subsurface of the land, the electromagnetic spectrum.
Wait, electromagnetic, like jamming.
Exactly. Jamming signals, radar, all of that. And finally, the human information domain.
Which is what? Propaganda?
Yeah, social media, propaganda, civilian panic. An urban littoral environment forces a commander to fight and coordinate across all 9 of those spaces simultaneously.
Wow. Which circles us right back to that terrifying Los Angeles port simulation from the beginning.
Exactly.
Because if a port relies on automated cranes in the cyber domain and the physical sea lanes in the maritime domain, a single failure point in any of those spaces cascades immediately.
A modern port operates purely on just-in-time logistics. There are no massive hidden warehouses storing months of extra food and medicine.
Right? It's all moving constantly.
Everything is on a truck or a train within hours of hitting the dock. If you shut down the port, local grocery stores empty out in about 48 hours. By day 5, the sheer panic over basic resources completely overrides the local police force's physical ability to maintain order.
So if a massive military alliance like NATO realizes exactly how fragile this all is, how in the world do they actually train to protect a 10 million person coastal city?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just rent out Los Angeles for a long weekend to run a military drill.
You can't. You really can't. The sheer physical scale of a megafoti makes it impossible to replicate in any real-world training center. So NATO had to build a fully realized 3-dimensional virtual matrix.
They build a fake digital city.
They did. They call it Arcaria.
Korea.
Yeah. It is a massive, meticulously simulated port city where they can wargame these complex 9-domain challenges without actually shutting down a real global economic hub.
So if the physical environment is that overwhelmingly complex, if human brains literally need a matrix simulator just to comprehend the variables of tunnels, skyscrapers, and oceans, the natural question is, won't technology just solve this for us?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah. Won't artificial intelligence just cut through all the chaos of the city?
The book actually tackles that exact sci-fi myth head-on in Chapter 7. There's this pervasive, highly publicized fear of autonomous lethal drone swarms. Sometimes they're called slaughter bots.
Oh, that sounds uplifting.
Yeah, the nightmare scenario is a swarm of drones flying through a city, autonomously hunting human targets using facial recognition software.
I mean, the technology for that basically exists today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Attach a small explosive or a gun to a commercially available quadcopter, give it an AI vision model, and just let it go.
The individual pieces certainly exist, but the book argues that deploying them effectively in an urban environment is a completely different story. A city is simply too dynamic.
Because of the layout.
Yeah, and the interference. If you train an AI drone swarm in an open desert or a sterile laboratory, it performs perfectly. But put that same swarm into a burning city block, the skyscrapers bounce and distort the GPS signals.
Oh, right.
Thick smoke blinds the optical sensors. Debris changes the physical layout of the street from hour to hour, and millions of civilians are moving unpredictably.
It's just too much data.
The AI gets entirely overwhelmed by the environmental clutter. Most of those autonomous drones would crash into power lines, be jammed by localized electromagnetic interference, or fundamentally fail to distinguish a hostile combatant from a civilian running with a piece of pipe.
So the Terminator swarm isn't going to solve urban warfare tomorrow.
No.
But AI has to be changing the landscape somehow, right?
Oh, it is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the book explains that the true revolution of AI in cities isn't lethal autonomy. It's intelligence. It's targeting. It's what intelligence communities call data fusion.
Which means like breaking down the silos between completely different types of information to see the whole board.
Precisely. The book gives a fascinating breakdown of how the Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC, operated in Iraq. They used massive data fusion to hunt down the insurgent leader Abu Musab al-Zarqawi.
Okay, how do they do that?
Well, they didn't just stare at spy plane footage. They fed seemingly disconnected random data points into machine learning algorithms. We are talking about a burner phone pinging a specific cell tower, the shadow of a vehicle on a satellite image, a local pizza delivery order, and intercepted radio chatter. No team of human analysts could physically process that much disparate information fast enough.
But the AI looks at the petabytes of noise and says, wait a minute, this specific burner phone always moves right after this specific truck is seen,
Yeah.
and it perfectly correlates with this spike in radio frequency.
Exactly. The mechanism finds the hidden pattern in the chaos, which then allows the human operators to act. And the sources note that the IDF is doing this right now with specialized AI programs. They use systems like LODEM to analyze endless surveillance streams to actually predict exactly where and when an enemy rocket launcher is going to be set up.
Predict it.
Yes, purely based on logistical movement patterns from days prior.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because if an AI superpower is processing data, then the military needs a constant, massive fire hose of data to feed it.
They do.
To predict the future, you have to watch absolutely everything.
And that is exactly where Chapter 8 comes in. It covers wide area motion imagery, or WAMI.
WAMI, okay.
We are talking about highly advanced sensor packages mounted on aircraft or drones that don't just look at one specific building. They record high-resolution, continuous video of an entire city at the exact same time.
So you can effectively rewind time on a whole metropolis.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if a car bomb goes off downtown at noon, you can just scrub the video back to 8 a.m., find the vehicle involved, and track its exact path backwards through the city to see what garage it originally pulled out of.
Yes, it provides an unending invisible eye over the population. And what's fascinating is how the author of that chapter traces the historical lineage of this concept.
Really? How so?
They compare this modern totalizing surveillance architecture to the physical surveillance systems used by the British Empire to manage and control indentured laborers in places like Mauritius.
Oh, wow.
The underlying mechanism of control is remarkably similar. When a population believes that an invisible eye is capable of seeing everything at all times, they are psychologically forced to police themselves out of sheer fear.
That is a heavy concept.
Bro.
The idea that the exact same technological tools used to track down an insurgent in a war zone could just as easily be used to exert total, chilling control over a civilian population.
It's unsettling.
Yeah, it feels like the book is constantly driving at this larger, very uncomfortable theme. The traditional walls between a military war, civilian policing, and criminal activity are completely collapsing in the concrete jungle.
The erosion of those traditional boundaries is arguably the most dangerous trend the sources identify. The tactics that were specifically designed for a battlefield are being co-opted by cartels, syndicates, and domestic terrorists.
Right.
Just look at Chapter 4, which breaks down the terrifying events in Culiacan, Mexico in 2019.
This is the Sinaloa cartel, right? When the military attempted to arrest El Chapo's son.
Ovidio Guzman, yes. When Mexican security forces captured him, the cartel did not just fight back in a traditional disorganized shootout. They launched what the book defines as a virtual urban siege.
A virtual siege.
Yeah. They deployed an acephalous swarm, which translates to a headless network.
But how does a headless network even pull off a coordinated citywide siege? Don't you inherently need a general barking orders from a command post to orchestrate something that massive?
Not anymore. You just need encrypted group chats, handheld radios, and a shared goal. The cartel fighters didn't have a central command post that the military could bomb. Instead, hundreds of independent, localized cells simultaneously received the same objective over their phones. Without waiting for step-by-step orders, they organically set up roadblocks using burning buses.
Just reacting in real time.
Yes. They systematically attacked military housing complexes where the soldiers' families lived, and they effectively took a dense city of nearly 1 million people hostage.
They completely outmaneuvered a state-funded army using decentralized swarm tactics.
And they won.
Yeah.
Facing the very real prospect of a massive bloodbath among the civilian population, the Mexican military was forced to release Guzman. The cartel understood the mechanics of the city and the state's moral obligation to protect it better than the state did.
And it's not just an international issue, right? The book brings these urban challenges right to the United States. I was reading Chapter 5, which dives deep into the domestic incident response during the Boston Marathon bombing.
Yes. The Boston Marathon case study is incredibly crucial because it exposes a very specific, deeply human vulnerability that all the technology in the world cannot fix. Cognitive decay from extreme fatigue.
Oh, because the first responders and federal investigators were running on practically zero sleep for days on end.
11 straight days of 24/7 high-stress operations. When a human hits hour 72 without real sleep, the brain's physical ability to process new information just plummets.
Makes sense.
The book details how this biological reality led directly to mechanical failures in the operation. Radio calls were completely misinterpreted. Different agencies held critical pieces of the puzzle, but they didn't cross-reference each other's databases because the people sitting at the computer terminals were physically running on fumes.
Wow.
It proves that even the most advanced urban operations are ultimately limited by the endurance of the human body.
And even after the human bodies endure the fighting, the book points out that the absolute hardest part is what comes next. Chapter 14 looks at post-war recovery, drawing from examples ranging from post-WWII Berlin to modern conflicts.
Yeah, recovery is brutal.
Right. And the biggest, most complex hurdle to actually restoring a city isn't like drafting a new constitution or holding elections. It's moving the rubble.
Debris removal, it sounds like a purely administrative, mundane task, but it is actually a massive strategic vulnerability.
How so?
Well, think about the chain reaction here. If you have millions of tons of concrete and twisted steel blocking the streets, you physically cannot drive a water truck into a neighborhood.
Oh, right.
You can't fix the downed power lines. You can't deliver emergency food rations.
And if the government can't turn the water back on, the surviving population turns on the government.
Exactly. The failure to clear rubble translates directly into a total lack of legitimacy. If the state cannot restore basic human services because the roads are physically blocked, it creates an immediate power vacuum.
Which someone else will fill.
And that is exactly the moment when an insurgent group, a cartel, or a local warlord steps in, hands out bottled water, and effectively takes over the neighborhood.
So what does this all mean? If you're a government, a military planner, or honestly just a citizen trying to understand the evening news, how do you prepare for an environment that punishes you this relentlessly?
This raises an important question, and it's the exact one David Kilcullen addresses in the postscript of the book. He introduces this brilliant concept called the combat fitness landscape.
Combat fitness landscape.
Yeah. In evolutionary biology, a fitness landscape dictates which specific traits allow an organism to survive in a given environment, right?
Oh.
Kilcullen applies this biological concept directly to the concrete jungle.
And what actually survives in the city?
Well, the city brutally punishes any entity that is large, slow, expensive, and centralized.
Like a tank.
Exactly. Think of a massive traditional armored tank column. It can't turn around in an alleyway, and its armor is completely vulnerable from the high-rise windows above it. It's totally obsolete. Instead, the urban landscape rewards the small, the agile, and the modular. It rewards those acephalous swarms we talked about with the cartel. Headless networks that can rapidly disperse into the shadows, use the civilian population as cover, and strike organically from multiple directions at once.
The ultimate adaptation.
Exactly. The actors who adapt to those specific traits will thrive, whether they are state militaries, terrorist cells, or organized crime syndicates.
Which brings us right back to the core mission of this deep dive. This edited volume, Urban Operations, War, Crime, and Conflict, is an absolute goldmine.
It really is.
If you want to understand why a cyber strike on a port could collapse a region, or how a cartel can outmaneuver a standing army, you have to understand the physical and psychological mechanics of the city itself. The environment fundamentally dictates the outcome of the conflict. You just need to read this book.
It is a foundational text for anyone who wants to make sense of the deeply complex security realities we are facing today.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought, inspired by this incredible source material. The book makes it abundantly clear that future adversaries will increasingly try to weaponize the city. They will try to turn the city's own interconnected infrastructure against whoever is trying to control it. Right now, all over the world, we are rushing to build smart cities. We are eagerly wiring every traffic light, power grid, and water main to the internet to make our daily commutes just a little bit more convenient.
Right.
But as we hardwire our concrete jungles for maximum efficiency, are we actually just pre-wiring the ultimate urban weapon for the adversaries of the future? Think about that the next time you look out your window. The era of the open battlefield is over. The city is the front line. Stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next one.